3 mistakes that keep people stuck after a breakup. This is probably the most important video you'll be watching on the topic of breakup. And it's really important for you to understand those mistakes because again and again, I see those mistakes with my clients. And maybe you've made those mistakes. Maybe you're about to make those mistakes, depending. It's very important for you to understand because that will really affect the outcome of your situation. That will also really affect how you manage this breakup. And it's very important to especially the third one, to really understand how you can make the right decisions because obviously after a breakup, we're not ourselves anymore, right? It's very hard to be calm and composed and clear about what we need to do. So that's why I'm sharing 3 common mistakes that people make so you don't make those mistakes. And if you did, how you can repair. So as I said, after a breakup will trigger a stress response, i.e. it's a very automatic response, the fight or flight, right? And when our brain processes those type of situation, which is actually, it's very interesting, similar to physical pain, the amygdala fires up, the automatic, the parasympathetic system fires up, and we become overly emotional. What happens when we make decisions? Overly emotional, decisions, they're not usually the smartest one. Right? They're not usually the ones that will make us feel better. They are usually short-lived. They're usually about short-term reward. They're not about long-term benefits. And also, all this cortisol and the stress hormones will distort the memory. You will have, and it's very interesting when you look at some studies on how we make decisions when we are stressed. We make bad decisions on average when we're under stress. It's very important to, after a breakup, you're stressed, so you're probably making bad decisions right now. And so don't feel that you're crazy, and maybe your friends are telling you you're crazy. It's a question of dysregulation. So that's the thing, it's just to help you understand the context of why we are making mistakes. Don't feel guilty, don't feel bad that you're making mistakes. We all do. Because we are, our brains are wired in a way that when we're under stress, we make weird decisions. And it's very hard for us to be logic. And sometimes it doesn't work. So step number 1 is to really find ways to calm the storm inside. Right? First element, and perhaps it's about going no contact, perhaps it's about reconnecting with friends, perhaps it's finding the right level of support, whether it's having a therapist or a coach, someone to help you calm the storm, finding ways for you to have the right emotional regulation tools. Let me share with you the first mistake. The first mistake is ruminating for clarity. And I think I'm saying it's a mistake, but everybody does it. It's not a big deal that you've done it or you're doing it. It's a question of like, is it really helping me? Right? When you're obsessing on the past, when you're dwelling on the past, you won't get any closure. You will actually create more confusion and fuel anxiety. The concept of analysis loop from Zitsche is this idea of whenever we ask ourselves questions we don't have an answer to, that's actually how you create anxiety. And because we don't have the answer, we keep asking ourselves the question. So whether it's about I should have, I could have, whether it's about what are they doing, why did they break up, what have I done, etc., etc., especially if we are dealing with someone who's avoiding conversation, who disappeared, who is blocking us, we can't get those answers. And because we don't get those answers, we have a hard time, our brains usually have a hard time dealing with gaps in the narrative. Right? We always make predictions, and when there are gaps in the storyline, it keeps us really obsessed. Okay? So that's why it's about letting go of this. A lot of people, I'm not a bit like this, but a lot of my clients, they're actually really good in the workplace because they are very driven in the sense of like, I have this and I'm not going to rest until I get this answer, right? The problem is this doesn't work, or this is not helpful in the context of breakup because you probably never get the answer. And actually the problem is what I say in my discovery calls. You're asking me the wrong questions. right? And if you ask yourself the wrong questions, you never get the answers. So first of all, emotional regulation, that's how you gain that clarity. And filter in and out the things you can answer, the things you can't answer. In that sense, my approach of therapy is really around stoicism. Getting back to what can we control? We can control our thoughts, and some of our thoughts, some of those ideas and questions, we have to accept, I will never be able to have an answer to that. So I shouldn't ask myself this question in the first place. It's easier said than done, obviously, but you're there. Trying to be more aware of those mechanisms and sort of step away from those unconscious drivers. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two is you either chase or you're cutting off too fast. So if you have an anxious attachment style, you chase your partner, you want validation, you want to be reassured. You don't understand that your partner actually might need that space, because a breakup is primarily a break from a situation. If you continue and if you add fuel to the fire, it's going to actually make it harder for you to repair the relationship. If you're an avoidant attachment style, you would block things. You know, I don't want to feel the pain. I want to distract myself. The problem is with those two reactions, they're obviously fear-driven, but are not the one that will give you any form of truth. So if you're an avoidant and you numb yourself, you're not going to have the ability to process things and understand what's going on. Right? So again, sometimes people feel like, oh, it's easier for an avoidant to break up. In a sense, yes, because they feel less the pain. And I think studies have shown that, yes, avoidant attachment don't suffer as much as anxious attachment. But the problem is that they don't gain any form of insight and awareness. And that's also the problem you have to understand if you're dealing with an avoidant. If this breakup doesn't teach them anything, the problem and the challenge is that you might get back to a relationship where you've done the work, where you feel more secure, but they haven't, right? And you have to be aware of this. So again, we are back to the nervous system, seeking safety. The problem is that the way we cope with things is sometimes not the right way of dealing with things. So what you have to, and I think that's the logic I always try to share with my clients, is anytime we are making a decision is asking ourselves, how would someone secure respond? What would be their thought process? In attachment theory, we call that working models, internal working models. What is the internal working model of a secure person in that context? If we are not clear about those things and we let our insecurities take the lead, we will distort things. We will have insecure response. And like any system, insecurity in, insecurity out. So it's about building that sense of safety from within yourself. Then you'll be able to make the right decision and stopping either chasing and feeling this sense of urgency if you have an anxious attachment style, or feeling I need to distance myself. I don't want to do the work because it's too much, and not learning and not progressing. Okay, so the wounds and your insecurities, it's very important for you to be aware of those wounds. They should inform you of how you function, but they should not be what drives your behavior. So it's always like finding the distance and the ability to distance yourself. I react this way because of how I grew up, right? And maybe in the past you would behave in a certain way and feeling afterwards like, I'm so stupid, why did I do that? Now it's a question of like recognizing, oh, hold on, I'm about to act like my 6-year-old self. Now I'm in charge. Now I'm aware, I have the right tools to find the right response, to replace this with a secure outcome or secure model and act in line with this. So that's the mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is you skipping the inner work. So I talked a little bit on the inner work before. You look for solutions outside. You're watching this video, for example. But it's, I think, really about thinking, if we get back together, I won't suffer anymore. Right? If he or she gives me the answer, I won't suffer anymore. The problem is, and again, I've seen that so many times, the best answers, the right answers, are the ones that you'll find inside. And the healing process never, it's not like rarely, it's like never comes from external validation. Never. It comes from some, analyzing and processing things within yourself. You won't be able to change the patterns if you don't address the root issues. And they're not coming from your partner. They're not coming from your ex. Your ex or this breakup revealed some of those wounds, triggered some of your unconscious patterns. Now it's about like, okay, I know I need to do something. Do the freaking work. And if you don't, and if you skip that, you'll get back to that unhealthy relationship or unhealthy patterns where you won't be able to commit with your partner or have a healthy relationship. So this work at developing that secure attachment style is the priority. Your priority is not to get back with your ex. If you have an anxious attachment style, that's your priority, is to develop a secure attachment style. Once you develop your secure attachment style, and it shouldn't be something that takes years, it's like a couple of weeks, if you do the right work, then things will fall into place, right? You're gonna have the right emotional regulation tools. You're gonna have the right set of boundaries. You'll be able to communicate properly. You'll be able to assess whether your partner is also doing the work, right? And everything will be easier. So again, it's shifting this sense of urgency, immediate reward system to what do I need long term, right? What will have the biggest impact in my life, not this week, in my life. Because the work that you're doing now will affect you and change you for the rest of your life. That's why I'm so passionate about these topics and helping people dealing with breakups, is because I know those breakups are one of the few life events where you have no other option but to do the work. And the only thing that I can wish you to achieve is to go and get and experience this transformation. You will be changed by this breakup. Now it's you and only you who can decide the work that you're putting in, the focus that you have, the support that you're choosing to have to find yourself and discover and find the person you really are, because this breakup is forcing you to do this. So it's about you, and you have to reconnect with yourself. There's no other way around. So if you're stuck, it's not your fault. It's about your, as we discussed, the unconscious system, your dysregulated, your attachment wounds. The thing is, again, if you have an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment, it's something that you have to work on. That will drive the best. And again, my experience, like I've tried to, because I've done a little bit of trial and error with my clients, by far the best way to help people who have insecure attachment style and deal with the breakup is to develop a secure attachment style. It doesn't feel like this. Again, we want, give me the answer type of solution. What should I send him? What should I do? That's not the point. The point is to do the work yourself. And so it's not a question, that's the first thing. It's not a question of whether you can do it. Everybody can do it. Now, attachment theory is something well researched. There's plenty of things that we can use. I have my own methodology where I help people to rewire their attachment. It's a process. It's not about changing who you are. It's changing about your response, changing some of your limited beliefs. Not all of them. And that's why it's fairly straightforward to develop a secure attachment style, because we're not looking at everything. We're not going to change entire your life. It's just very targeted to this specific part of ourselves. If you don't know where to start and you want to have a course or something to learn from, have a look in the description. I will put a link to my course, Reconnect. It's a self-paced course where you broke up with your partner, you're confused, you don't know where to start. You follow this framework. That's the only thing you do. You just follow the framework, and that really helps you and gives you the tools to move forward, gain clarity, and know what to do. If you're not really into online courses, have a look in the description. There's also a link to book a call with me. I've developed now a program for a handful of people every month to develop a secure attachment style. So let's have a discussion, the two of us, to discuss how I can help. And I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. That does help me a lot. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.